Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. It's P.L. Stewart here on Six Elemental Interviews on the Drowned Kingdom Saga YouTube channel. And this afternoon, I am joined by a dear friend, someone who is an absolutely brilliant poet, a spectacular editor, someone who is an influencer with social media. I'm not going to keep going on about all the amazing things that she is or she does. I'm going to let her talk about some of that too. Trust me, I will let her get a word in edgewise, but I just wanted to just express how happy I am and how honored I am to have Christine BODE Bodacious Copy join me today. How are you, Christine?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks, Paul. It's so great to see you. So great to have a chance to chat a little bit longer than we normally do. So I'm happy.
Oh, so am I. So am I. So, full disclosure for those who aren't aware, Christine is my brilliant editor for the Drowned Kingdom Saga, of which I'm very humbled. So, I've had the privilege of working alongside with Christine to help bring my series to life. So, I couldn't be happier with my choice of editors. So, just full disclosure, get that out there. This is someone who is not only a friend, but also, in a way, a partner in my entrepreneurial indie author journey. So just so everybody knows that. But Christine, as I mentioned at the onset, there are so many incredible facets to the person you are. But if you indulge me, not trying to embarrass you, you're a fantastic poet. You are a brilliant poet. And I cannot help but I was blessed to be able to read your poetry. You can talk about the poetry publications you have out, but I'm gonna indulge me. I'm going to read something from and I have this version of
The old
Eden
version.
Refugee. Yeah, I have the old version, and I have the new version posted up on the screen, so we can see. Debbie, of course, highly recommended. But I'd like to read, if you'll indulge me, from one of your poems from this book, and it was written in August of 2002, and it's called "Rainbow of Genres," and very topical, I think, for this. So, science fiction is shiny silver, romance is ruby red, action dramas royal purple, scary horror midnight black. Historicals are coffee brown, how-tos are terracotta, cookbooks must be saffronesque, gardening manuals magenta, sports are vivid tangerine, self-helps pineapple yellow, travel guides will be aquamarine, art books cyan and vermilion, biographies are emerald green, music sapphire blue, psychothrillers aubergine, poetry is every hue. I think that's an absolutely wonderful poem. What inspired you to write that particular poem and also poetry in general?
I've been writing poetry as a teenager, and for the most part, it was a way to process my emotions. My parents always told me I was too sensitive. I've always felt things very deeply, and I didn't realize because I'm an empath. That came much, much, much later. But as far as that particular poem is concerned, to be perfectly honest, I have very little recollection of what might have inspired me, except to say that I've always been a bibliophile. So I'm sure that one day I just was interested in figure out if a book was, a type of a book or a genre of a book was a color, what would it? I can't imagine it would be any other in a long time.
Wow. Well, again, the poem itself is brilliant. It made me think so much about different genres in general. And I think all of your poetry, again, is stupendous. And some of it really inspiring. Some of it, you'd mentioned part of the reason why you wrote poetry was in response to coping with different things. Some of it is, again, beautiful. Some of it goes to some dark places. Do you feel that poetry is an even better vehicle, perhaps, than than nonfiction, etc., to really express things of that nature?
Not necessarily, but how I think about poetry, I think about it like photography, to be honest. It's a snapshot in a moment in time. And so if we can capture that particular moment in terms of how we feel about something, or, describe what's happened in that moment, it's like taking a photograph. And actually, photography was my first entrepreneurial business. I had a business called Celtic Poet Photography in the very early 2000s, and I took a lot of photos. I went to Ireland 3 times, and I'm very much a huge Celtic fan. So I had all of these photographs I'd taken in Ireland with my Pentax K1000, and film. I ended up like selling some of those, and just it was just the way I've always looked at the world through that type of a lens.
Yeah, and I feel,
lens.
yeah, so well said. And I feel that poets have a unique lens. You talked about poetry is great, almost like a snapshot in time. Is it difficult though to translate that into something that's, i.e., rhyming or non-rhyming, or something that is essentially poetic, rather than simply writing down like a journal entry or a diary? Or how did you actually translate all these thoughts and feelings and expressions into poetry?
I think, to be honest, that things just would hit you, or hit me. You know what I mean? It'd be like I'd have something, I would hear a line in my head. It would often start with a line. It might be a song that triggered it. It could be just a thought I had in my mind, and then I wanted to write something around, because it wouldn't leave me alone. So to sort of capture whatever it was that I think spirit was trying to get me express. Sometimes it was just a way, like, honestly, there was a period of my life where I was very hurt. I was filled with rage, grief, and I just had to process it somehow. That's why some of the poetry is dark. It's definitely written from experience and the things that have happened to me in my life. And I couldn't have written it any differently. Sometimes a poem, I think often the stuff that's a bit lighter to me seemed to be easier to write in rhyme. Often I would just write like, stream of consciousness poetry. And I know I had a really spectacular poetry editor in the early 2000s. In 2002 to 2004, I worked at Goodman's LLP in Toronto as a legal assistant to one of Canada's leading entertainment lawyers, Michael Levine. And he was really good friends with Patrick Watson. And I don't know if you know who he was, but Patrick was at one point the chair of the CBC. He's a renowned author, broadcaster. This hour has 7 minutes or something like this hour has. I can't remember the exact name of the show. Yeah, and he was like an all-around Renaissance man. And he was so generous with me, because when I told Michael that I had written this book of poetry, he said, you should really talk to Patrick, because he's a genius at that stuff. And Patrick like willingly gave me his time. He took my manuscript and he went through it with a pencil. Every single poem, he told me which ones had something to them, where my street voice was authentic, this is really good, or this one needs work. He really taught me about meter, because I didn't know anything about meter. I just wrote, like as a kid, right? You read rhyming poetry, but I didn't understand what meter actually meant. So it made me, his notes and his gift of his time, like really made me go back and look at everything and try and rewrite it to the best of my ability. If I was going to use meter in a rhyming poem, then stick to it and understand the beat and the syllables and how important it is, because poetry is to be read out loud for the most part. It's just so much more effective that way.
Wow, what an experience. And I really feel your poetry again so beautiful. I've read your poems out loud, which is how that's how they were meant to be enjoyed, I think. And I think some of them have really transported me. Now, speaking about the light stuff, it even says in the back that your first published poem was about Sean Cassidy.
It was.
So I don't know if that was I don't know if that was a crush back in the day, or as a TV icon, but yeah, that's awesome. I know there's poems in here about the boss, Bruce Springsteen, so there is some light stuff in here too, right?
Oh yeah, and actually music has always been one of the great loves of my life, and thing that when I was younger, it just really inspired me to write several that are probably in that book. The one about Bruce, the one inspired by Bruce Springsteen. There's one inspired by U2, Bob Geldof, certainly, and that is one of the major. Bob Geldof and Bono of U2, when I was a young person, were two of the biggest heroes of my life, major influences. And so I think it was 1987. I wrote a letter to Bob Geldof, and I sent him the poem that I had written that was inspired by him. And I so naively said, if I ever make any money from this, I'll donate it to Band-Aid. Of course, pennies maybe, but he actually wrote me back. He wrote me back on Band-Aid stationery, and I still have that letter to this day. And he basically said he thought it was brilliant, and to keep writing. So that's why I did. And then many years later, in 2002, I was living in Toronto, and who is he's in public relations and PR for musicians, and he helped me through Michael and through another friend of mine. They helped me actually meet Bob at a concert in 2002. So that was the first time I met him, and then I ended up meeting a couple of times after that as well, because I was one of the first people who worked with two other women who are still doing his fan-based social media, because he hates it. He doesn't want to deal with it. But he acknowledged that, he thanked me for what I was doing, and the other two ladies are still doing it. But I have a job and a career, so I didn't have time to keep doing it for free. But it was a thrill to be able to meet one of my heroes who inspired me so much. I mean, he's so smart. He's so bloody smart, and he doesn't suffer fools gladly. But it's like, to have the feeling that he actually heard what I said and getting to him, it was like quite a rush.
Wow, that's an incredible story. I mean, you have such a rich, and we've just scratching the surface here. You have such rich and incredible experiences. Your background, your employment background, entertainment law, and aside from that, now more, you being a poet, like all these things and these experiences. How did all this naturally lead you to editing and literature, and how did all that morph into where you are now?
Yeah, I would say on a very long and winding road, it did lead me there. Obviously, I've been a reader since I was 5 years old. I probably read 2,000 books, but I can't remember a lot of the earlier ones. But I've always been a big reader, so that was part of the attraction. And I worked as an administrative assistant in a variety of industries. I worked for architects and engineers. I worked government. I worked for doctors, lawyers. I worked for lawyers for about 12 years, maybe. And in that job, I was always strong in English. So in that job, you always have to proofread and edit correspondence, right? So that's part of the job. It was just a natural thing that I had to do. And so from that, as time went on, people would ask me, can you help me edit my resume? Or can you help me take a look at this story that I've written? Or, and then, slowly. It's like, would you be able to edit a book that I wrote? I'm like, really? And I just started that way based on basically being self-taught or through all of the experience that I earned over the years in all of those various positions. And so skip way ahead to 2020, I had been working since 2008. I worked as a social media manager and marketer specifically for musicians, and most of them were in the music industry, but some of them were also from the United States or the UK. And I was really fortunate to have people who were, from Juno Award winners to Grammy winners, CCMA, CFMA, Maple Blues Award winners. I mean, some really freaking talented people. And it was amazing for about the first years. And then the pandemic hit. And, that they were the first people who could, they lost everything because they could. And as we know, that in these days, with the way that streaming has, processed, it's like you can't money from streaming. So if you're not touring and selling albums from the stage and merch from the stage, you're really not making any money. And so I lost about 3/4 of my clients in 2020 when the pandemic hit. And I took the CERB benefit that we were fortunate enough to receive here in Canada. And that got me, but I decided then, it's like, you better find another here. Like I had to pivot. And because I was already working part-time for a small Canadian company and dealers to publish their work and to promote it. It's called Publish and Promote.ca with Don James, his colleague. And because I had already been doing that on the side for a while, I just thought, you might as well just start your own editing business and see what happens. And I've been working on it for the last almost 6 years.
Wow. Well, first of all, congratulations, because again, you're a wonderful editor. But if you don't mind, I'm gonna pause and maybe rewind a bit to being a social media manager for these huge names, these big stars in their industry. Like, first of all, how did you specifically become a social media manager? Like, how did that even develop? And second of all, for those who might not know the inside outs of that, what do you do as a social media manager? What's the job?
Okay, so it turned out to be so much more than I ever thought it would be. But to be honest, I had made friends online with a woman who basically was a social media manager in the early days, and we didn't even have a term for that at that time. Do you remember MySpace? Like around 2003. I was just into it because I loved music. And so I met all kinds of people through MySpace to begin with. One of those people was basically the social media for favorite bands, which is the Waterboys. Wow. And the lead singer. So I actually got to know her. I had a friend who was a huge fan of Mike Scott and the Waterboys, and she was really ill at the time. And so again, I wrote a really heartfelt letter and sent it to my friend Paige and said, would you consider giving this to Mike? I really was just looking for Mike to maybe send my friend. She'd been in bed for almost a year. And I wanted him to send her like a little note, right? And just with some encouragement and maybe like a picture, signed picture, something like that. And he went so above and beyond that. He sent her like a whole package full of stuff. It was amazing. And it was really like, I've got the tingles right now just remembering that, because he was amazing to do that. She was too. And then she and I became really good friends, and we used to write each other in emails back and forth all the time. So I said to her, what kind of a cool gig is this that you have, like looking after their MySpace, page, and how did you meet them and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So I thought to myself, geez, I'd really love to do that. I'd love a person who helps the artist, post their stuff and monitor the comments and put whatever out there that they want me to put out there, all that sort of thing. And so she actually helped me get one of my first clients, and she was an author. She was a British author. She's actually known. Her name is Anna Pasternak. And Anna at that time wrote a book called Daisy Dooley Does Divorce. It was chick lit. And honestly, it wasn't something that I normally read, but Paige said to me, you know, I think it's really good. Actually, it's really fun. And I said, all right, give it to, you know, I'll get it. I'll read it. And I did really like it. It was really fun. And then the three of us, I started working for Anna in those early days, doing her social media. I'd met Anne Vreend, who's an Edmonton artist. She does basically R&B and some blues, some gospel. Like, you know, she's that type of a roots artist. She's fantastic, amazing voice. And so I met her at a concert here in Kingston, and I sort of told her that I was thinking about doing this. I'm going to need from her.
Are you still there, Christine? Oh, okay.
It said that the connection was.
Okay,
I just
yeah, I
wanted
can
to
hear
make
you.
sure you could hear me. So anyway, yeah. So Anne said to me, I'm going to need you. She took my card, and 6 months later, she was my first music client. It just went from there. It was word of mouth, and the Canadian music industry is very small. So after a while, when people got to know that you did what most people song "Who Let the Dogs Out," and that won a Grammy. And I worked with a children's artist who was a Canadian artist, Jennifer Grammy. I'm telling you, I've worked with Sultans of String and Chris McCool for 14 years now, I think. And they're exceptional. I kind of lost the plot with the questions. Repeat it. I'd be happy to answer what you asked me in the first place.
No, you are answering because my question was about, you know, what does the social media manager do and how did you get into this? So no, you're totally.
That's how I got into it. So I got into it because of Paige and the Waterboys. To be perfectly honest, I just thought, how cool. I taught myself about Facebook pages, Facebook around 2008. And then, of course, everything's changed an awful lot over the years, but I did a lot of studying and figured it out. And then I started helping people specifically with Facebook in the early days. And then it built from there. I learned Twitter and Instagram and all of those things. I followed all the major social media marketing gurus and just kept up with everything. And then I worked that way. So what you do is, yes, you post their content for them. Sometimes you help write the content. Suggest content, you monitor the comments, you delete the spam, you help them run ad campaigns. So if they want to put, you know, bums in venues, then you're selling tickets online, so you're going to do that, or album sales, that sort of thing. It's everything to do with basically getting the word out there and building the person's following, right? The fan base. And in the early days, that was something that was, you know, relatively easy to do because, you know, don't get me started, but Zuckerberg, you know, basically just keeps messing with everything and making things more difficult all the time. I absolutely hate Meta now. I'm still on Instagram, but I gave up Facebook account and I still have to use it for a couple of my clients, but they're crooks. And I'm so unhappy with the way things have turned out after we worked so bloody hard for 10 years to build a fan base for these beautiful people with this amazing talent. And they can't reach those people. So that's really disheartening. That's why I'm like, I've had enough of this social media marketing stuff.
Well, still, I mean, a fascinating career. It sounds like you did so many amazing things and so much good, frankly, to help your clients. And also, you are very much doing that. You're very much part of like avant-garde, like cutting edge stuff, right? Like being able to manage these mediums for these very high profile people, and really important, right? Like I don't think we can understate how important a role like that would have been. But also, just what did you learn from doing that job? Like, what did you learn? It sounded like you learned a lot.
I never felt that way. I learned a lot about social justice, to be honest. Yeah, I learned a lot about this because a lot of the clients that I work with, it's really important to them to support cause. And so they use the platform for something bigger. And so, for instance, Sultans of String, they're very much involved in the UNHCR, raised thousands and thousands of dollars for that organization, interested in, like protecting our climate, our wildlife, and like so many other issues, right? And so almost every single artist that I've worked with, especially musicians, they're very much into, social justice, human rights. I didn't know very much about that before I started working with them, and they've taught me an awful lot. They've taught me how important it is that if you have any kind of a voice, that you can use it to try and help others.
Well, and I would say, Christine, what I know from you in your own way, and even through your poetry, I think that's you too. I think you're someone who's always trying to help people. I think you're someone who is always trying to certainly not necessarily champion every cause, but certainly someone who speaks out. You have a moral voice, strong moral voice. You're someone people respect and look up to, and you're not scared to say things how they are. So I don't know. I think that fits well with you, in my opinion.
Like, oops, like I just Zuckerberg. Sorry, I can't even speak now. I don't see myself, but the fact you do, and maybe others might, is to say the most about it. I just don't see myself that way. Like, I see myself as somebody, yes, I believe what I believe, and I'm not afraid to say anything. As if somebody asks me a question, I will tell them honestly what I think. I think it's sometimes, but yeah, I've always been an open book. If you read my poetry, you'd know that.
But in the best way. And so you're the social media manager. You're doing this for all these high profile clients. Things happen in the industry changes. You put towards editing. You already have a background and proofreading and things like that. What has that been like, and what has being an editor been like in terms of the highs, the lows, the challenges? How is that going?
To be honest, it is the most rewarding career, and it is because when I see somebody that I've worked with birth their book, especially a first-time author, and it's so exciting for them, and it's exciting for me too. And honestly, my job is to just help them to make it the best that it can be without changing their voice, and to literally just support them, and because I'm as excited for them as they are. And it's because I know what it's like. Like, it was really exciting for me when I first published my book of poetry. It didn't really go anywhere, and that's okay. It's because because we both know how much time in marketing, and I had a job already. In fact, I had 2 jobs. So I didn't have time to do what needed to be done. And that's okay. Now I sort of look at it in a different way. It's like it served its purpose. And if a few people got to read it and enjoyed it, that's fantastic. I can still at any go back and decide to put some time into marketing books, but you know what it's like, right? It's really time consuming. So I think that what I learned is that it's a really terrific collaborative process. I've always been someone who tends to enjoy one-on-one. I don't know, I was just not as comfortable in a big team because I've sort of worked in different environments that way, but working one-on-one with someone, there's something really special about that relationship. And it's like, if you earn the trust of the person that you're working with, that's everything. And for me, integrity has always been like the number one most important thing in any career or in anything in life, to be honest. To be honest and truthful about something and then to be supportive on top of it. I don't think there's enough people out there who realize how important that is for others, especially because, people come from all walks of life, and some people write a book because they also were damaged in some way. They were really hurt and they needed to process that, and they needed to, figure out what they learned as a result of those experiences. And then to have the courage that it takes to publish a book about that, like a memoir or an autobiography, or you write a story that's part of an anthology, or you create a whole new world, that discusses really important and significant issues like your books do. When I met you and I read your first book, I was like, holy crap, this guy is really smart, for one thing. And I was just like, you're right. Like, Authren is a character that isn't easily likable in book 1, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I was just thinking, like, you pay attention to the social issues of today and found a way to weave them into your medieval, like, epic fantasy tale. That is really, like, amazing to me. So much fun to work on. Afterwards, I didn't come in until Lord and King, but those first 2 books, when I read them, I was like, what is he doing with this? This is incredible. And it's really, every time I edit another one of your books, I'm just like, I can't, like, every time you surprise me with something, I think I know what's coming and I don't. And that is so exciting. It's so fun. Like, you make me crazy sometimes. I'm like, don't hurt him. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to kill him off. I know you are. But the fact that you have this brain that could know you wanted to say within a 7-book series, to me, is unbelievable. It's so remarkable. Anybody who has the gift of being able to do that, I couldn't do it. I know I'm a much better editor than I am a writer. I couldn't write fiction. I've written a lot of nonfiction, but I couldn't write fiction in the same way. I think there are people who are just so gifted at writing fiction, and I just leave it to them, because I'm in awe of them every single day. Hey, you're going to be excited to know, look what I'm reading.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
You told me that I had to read Guy Gabriel Kay, and I am, and wow, I'm not even that far in. I'm like, again, could I dream up something that good? No, never in a million years. Can you? Yes, you can.
Well,
yes, you can.
You're far too kind, Christine. Thank you so much for the kind word for words. I need people to understand, and I do tell people whenever I can that an author, I describe it this way. I'm a writer until I get to partner with you, and then become an author, because you are the most important part. You, the person you are, with all your experience and your knowledge and your intelligence, everything you bring to the table as an editor, and being a top shelf editor, you turn it into the actual work, right? Before it gets to you, it's this not quite thing that needs some polishing and shaping and perhaps feedback coming back your way to say, hey, PL, think about this. Or so, but once you've touched it, then it becomes the book, and that makes me an author. So until you and I get to collaborate, I'm the writer. But then once we've collaborated, I become the author. That's the way I look at the process. And I want to go back to some things you said, which are really important. And I don't think people realize this enough, especially if anyone's out there listening and is looking for an editor. One of the reasons why I can't sing Christine praises enough is that, and I'm going to let you get into what actually an editor does, because I think a lot of people don't exactly understand all the facets of what an editor does and all the different types of editing and the services you offer. But Christine is someone with such a high degree of integrity. She is someone with such a high degree of intelligence. She is someone who understands literature, understands genre, understands voice, understands tone, understands marketability as well. Like, I know for a lot of people, as you said, some people are writing a book because they want to express themselves and they're not so much worried about the sales. And some people want to write a book so they can sell thousands of copies. And so I think regardless, someone like Christine is going to keep you on track and is going to understand what your goals are with your work. And she's definitely going to help you achieve that. So, but again, what you said was so important about the fact that, it starts with, integrity. Christine's someone you can trust, right? I trust her impeccably with my work. I would not just anyone with my baby. My books are my kids. Deb and I have 7 kids between us. We have grandkids. Like, my kids are a different baby, and Christine's the one person that I trust with them to get them to that finished product. So I hope that says a lot about how I feel about you and how amazing an editor and a person you are. But yeah, I think as well, what Christine brings is that she's also a poet. So she understands the creative process. She understands, there's certain expertise that and skills, knowledge that a really good editor brings to the table, and that's just what Christine's a published poet, right? So she gets it. So I could go on, but I think there's a lot of reasons why I feel a lot of people would really benefit from someone like you in their corner as an editor, because I think one of the things you said, it's so critical. One of the things I absolutely love about working with you is that, yeah, you have that touch where when to just bring that brush to the vision, or when to bring the scalpel to say you need to do this, and that's a skill. That's a skill. That's a really, really fine skill that you have that not every editor has, right? So, but I just want to again express how grateful I am that you're my editor. So I boast about you all the time. So
I am even more grateful that I am your editor. Believe me, it's been such a joy, and I thank you for what you said. That it is truly humbling. I'm not this kind of feedback, to be honest. I've had a couple people really say some beautiful things. I've had some perfect testimonials. It's true, but it's like, when you meet someone and you respect them on an intellectual level, so much, and then to have them say what you've said about me in return, I could almost cry. It's so nice. It's not something that happens. And believe me, not once working with musicians or lawyers for sure has anybody ever taken the time to turn it around and say, hey, you know what? You are actually smart and you do have integrity. And you know what I mean? You are these things, because those other people that I've worked with, it's all about them. It is, you pay me for a service, I do the work. It's all about, that's it, right? They don't give you their time in the same way that you're giving this time to me now, which is pretty special, I have to say. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm the lucky one. Hey, for all you all those who know me, how integral my wife Deb is as a business partner, etc. She loves Christine, and when you get the Deb stamp for approval, that you're doing well. And my wife is brilliant as well. She's a really, really sharp person, especially on the business end. And so we had the privilege of Deb and I went out to meet Christine, and we We had a lovely dinner. It was wonderful in downtown Kingston. We got to know each other, meet each other in person, and the person that you feel so well and you're friends with, but then you get to meet the person. It was just awesome, and we sat there and talked for hours, and it was great. And I think again, I go back to what you said, Christine, was so important. Like for me, it was about the collaboration, right? It's about yes, I'm the author, but I'm working with the editor to bring the story to its best form, right? So, and again, I think I need people to understand that. And also, perhaps if you could expand on, editing isn't just one thing. It has many aspects. And there's different types of editing. There's line editing, there's copy editing, there's proofreading. So can you explain perhaps the different types of editing that you do in the space?
Sure. The number one thing that I do most for people is line editing. So line editing is sort of a combination of stylistic editing and copy editing. So what I'm doing is like literally line by line, I'm checking your grammar, your spelling, your punctuation. That's all the basic stuff. I'm checking to make sure that, within the construct of, say, a paragraph that is cohesive. It's about fluidity. It's about rhythm. It's about just ensuring that, I've had to, not for you necessarily, but for other clients, going through the manuscript, and I would say, and this is actually more of a manuscript review developmental editing type thing, and I have that capability. It's not what I focus on, but I'd say, do you really think that character would say that? Considering that character's gender and age and that sort of thing. And so those are the kinds of things, because I read a lot, I would say, your first 3 chapters, your prologue and your first 3 chapters are so good and you got them so well, but you wandered off a little ways down the road, and it's like, I don't understand the purpose of this. So these are things that I may actually give to you that not necessarily most line edit, but I see the whole picture that way. And I think that working as a line editor, though, it's really much more about clarity, fluidity, pacing, tone as well, right? As well as those grammar features that's just part of what a copy editor does. So the copy editor would come in, it's like, honestly, I am a line editor in that, your books are huge, right? So you have to pay close attention to everything to make sure that everything is flowing the way that it should. And it does. Usually, I mean, honestly, I only use the brush on you way more than the scalpel. There's not much I have to do. You're not difficult to work with. But some people are actually, you know what I mean? Like, they will, because I do work with a lot of first-time and independent authors. It's just like this is a new thing for them. So I kind of can say, look at this in this way. You've really nailed this part of it, but this part is weaker. Or I'm wondering, why is the character saying this or doing this? And how does this work out? And obviously you have to read the whole book at least once before you can even say something like that. But if you think about what I think like a reader too. So that's another thing, right? It's like I'm reading this book and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So that is why I can, then go, okay, I know what it needs now. I know how to suggest that fix, or just, talk and collaborate and say, well, what do you think? And it worked out really well for me with the other person that I'm talking about, he worked on his first novel. And I was so excited to see what the book became at the end of our collaboration. I was so happy for him, right? And it's like, it's what it should be. That's what it should be. Or how it should turn out, I should say. Copy editing is something much simpler. So it's like you get a document script and it comes in and it's really, really well written to begin with. So really all you have to do is go through, again, in a way, it's line editing. Just I tend to look at line editing to include stylistic editing. I certainly do with my service. So with copy editing, it's just like you're literally going through and you're fixing like surface stuff. You know, you're not really messing with structure in anything like that. You're just working any, you know, people are very much have trouble with commas. Even I do. You know, it's like some people are just like, we just think we need more commas than we do. And I think it's because people write the way they speak. I know certainly I have in the past. So it's like, that's like just one simple issue. Or they might use too many ellipses or colons. You know what I mean? You're ellipsis happy for sure. But so you can suggest a way, like, and again, it has everything to do with how easy is this for the reader to digest. Because if your goal is to write a real page turner, you can't get bogged down in like pulling the reader out of the story, either with your punctuation or like anything, the way that you've decided to write that, like all of a sudden, you know, the tone shifts or something, you know, something glaring comes up and it pulls you out of the story. Well, that's part of your job as the editor, is to go, wait a minute, you know, we don't want that. We want them to keep turning the pages. And but the copy editing is the easy part. The proofreading is literally the very last step. So it's the last step. Typically, like if I was working for a traditional publishing house, this would be in PDF format or something like that. And it is literally all on its way to the book designer, the interior designer. And you're just to look at anything that might have been overlooked. And I always do 2 copy editing or line editing and a proofread for every manuscript. Now, that's not to say I wouldn't suggest that the book is also proofread by somebody else. That's really important, because I've done 3 passes. And if I miss something, it's because I've been really close to it as well. So that's why I think it's often really important for somebody else to proofread the final proofread. In a perfect world, it doesn't always work that way with indie authors, because you don't have an advance from a publishing company, you know, to pay me with. So we can only do what we can do. There will always be an error that wasn't found. Even, I mean, I find them in the top 5 publishing company, you know, in their book all the time. We all do. We're only human. There will be something that will be missed, but as long as somebody can read the book and have an incredible experience doing so and are not constantly pulled out of it because the editing is so sloppy, we've done our job. It's a good thing. So, but that proofreading stage, a lot of people get it confused. They think that proofreading is, you know, copy editing in a sense, and it's really not. Proofreading, copy editing takes a lot more time. And proofreading should be something like, you know, say you can read 10 pages in an hour, or 20. I might be able to read 20 pages in an hour. You should only be correcting at that point, like minimal errors, like when it's got to the proofreading stage. So you should be able to go through it quite quickly and then just catch any little things, you know, that need to be tweaked before it goes off to the book designer. And often people think, oh, I need a proofreader to proofread my manuscript. I was like, I will receive the manuscript and go, oh no, manuscript needs more than a proofread. Wow. So that's where I think people, because they don't understand the different types, and there's so many more. In fact, I just did a blog post about all the editing types explained, because developmental or structural editing is like the first piece. If you're not someone who's really strong in structuring your story, or even in a nonfiction book, if you're not sure how to structure the book, then a really good developmental editor to help with that, you know, it just sets you up for success with the book, because that's really important. You have a brain where you know exactly what you're going to do with every book or with every character. You have it all. I don't know how a brain can hold that much information, but you do. So it's like not everybody has the same, gift in that sense. And, not everybody writes in the same genre. Fantasy is actually challenging, I would think, to write in. It's so much, your world building skills are top notch, but I think that it's something that's not an easy book to write for the first time author. If you are, if you are attempting a fantasy novel, especially one that may go on to be a series, it is a huge undertaking. And hats off to you, because it wouldn't be my choice for the first time efforts, right? It'd be a lot easier to write a romance or anything in contemporary fiction, but I think maybe sometimes people don't understand that actually fantasy and historical fiction, I think, are two of the most challenging genres. And sci-fi, to be honest, because sci-fi is very similar to fantasy, right? And it's that world building and like making sure that everything sort of makes sense to the point that the reader can appreciate it and not go, that's, there's no way that would happen,
Yeah, definitely a sense of realism. That's huge. But yeah, no. So thank you so much for explaining that. I also want to direct people that Christine writes an awesome blog. So check out her website, Bodacious Copy. All the links are in this video. So there you go. She's just written a blog about the different types of editing. So those of you who are looking for an editor, someone who can, even if you don't select Christine, and I recommend that you give her a serious look as your editor, she can help guide you, in terms of what you might be looking for. So that perhaps also fiscally, you can put your money in the right places. If you only need one specific type of editing, perhaps, you can be steered towards that as opposed to investing in, especially as an indie author, in some other type of editing that you may not necessarily need. So great stuff, Christine, for that. And again, check out Christine's blog just in general for being a great blog and having great advice, great content. I also want to mention too, Christine, that because just backtracking, so you have worked in the traditionally published industry in a capacity as well. So can you tell us, so I thought
no, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't worked. Okay, my mistake.
I thought you had. I have not worked in traditional publishing. No.
My mistake. I thought you had. But on that vein, though, what do you see as, because although you haven't worked there, however, you've certainly worked with big artists, big entertainers, people with big profiles, international profiles. You work with authors. Where do you see this whole artist industry, writing, music? Where is all this going between AI and, where is all this creative stuff going?
I think it's just going to continue to move forward the way it always has. I think that people are really worried about AI, and I use it as a tool. I freely admit it's on my website. If I didn't use AI for the graphics for my blog posts, it would take me, so I couldn't write as much, right? I couldn't offer as much because it used to take me hours to find a Creative Commons image that might work for a blog post that I wanted. And that is something I don't want to do. I use AI all the time. It's a fantastic tool. It helps you. It can really help you, but it's like everything, and especially when it comes to the technology, there will always be people who are going to use these tools for nefarious reasons. And but I think that at the heart of things, it takes a human to write a human story, and I don't think authors should be worried about that. I mean, there are so many jobs available right now for companies who want you to work to train AI, obviously, to be more human, to give it more information about how to respond in a more human way. And I suppose that'll happen whether we like it or not. But at the heart of things, it's like humans are very unique beings. Everybody has a very unique story to tell. Everybody's had a journey. That's not going to change. And, I don't think that years down the road, there won't be any brand new music by humans or brand new that are influential or anything like that happening. Maybe I'm naive, but I don't think it's going to change as much as people are worried about it being, having it change. It's just a tool.
Well,
I think also we are already, right? If you just bear with me for a sec, but if you're all of us are on social media in some way or another. All of us are totally aware of AI content when it comes our way. Now it's getting I don't like it when there are bad actors who are creating videos and think it's somebody who's a real person and you get duped. That's happened to me. I've been totally shanghaied a couple of times in the early days because I didn't realize that it wasn't real. But I will say I learned my lesson. But it's again, you can train your feed. You can see that, don't want to see that, don't want to see that. And you're still going to be able to see real human content for now anyway. I think people are already fed up with fake content. And so I think that there's everything, right? There'll be another shift down the road now where it'll be oh, it didn't go in the direction that you think it's going to go in now because everybody's afraid of that. I think that humanity will win out because, there's just too many differences between a machine and machines are never going to be sentient beings. I believe that. They don't have souls.
Well, I like your wise and optimistic version of how things are going when it comes to that stuff. So thank you for that and for the encouragement. Oh, I want to quickly put up, it looks like your lovely Jay just put up a great interview. Thank you so much. Well, it's all because of the great person I have, the guest I have, that makes the interview so fabulous. So, Christine, tell me something a bit. Now I'm going backwards again. When it comes to poetry and when it comes to literature, who are some of your influences and or authors that today you're reading? I'm so excited that I feel great about the recommendation of Guy Gavriel Kay. I think if you start reading his stuff, it's addictive. His stuff is absolutely fabulous. If you get into his backlist, I think you're going to be blown away by how good something is.
I can understand that. I bought it too, so I have to read this next.
Yeah,
you told
that's the
me
same
about
version
this,
I have.
So I bought it.
Yeah. So I think the Toronto 5 are going to. That is awesome. But you know what?
He's on Bluesky.
Sorry?
You know he's on Bluesky.
Yeah. He actually. Yeah.
He's on Bluesky. I didn't know until yesterday.
Actually, when he was so kind to, and he doesn't comment a lot on a lot of things, but so the amazing Dr. Philip Chase is a brilliant booktuber, good friend of mine as well, and a brilliant author. Check out his stuff, the Eden Trilogy. He and an incredible booktuber, Evan the New Writer, has 1 million+ followers on YouTube. They were doing a feature where they're reading all Guy Gavriel Kay's books together, and they're having different guests for different books. That I was humbled to be asked to be the guest for the Fionarvor tapestry, the trilogy. So if you check out YouTube, there's 3 videos for the 3 books that Philip and Evan and myself did explore together. And Guy Gavriel Kay was kind enough in the last episode of the final book, The Darkest Road. We were also joined by another academic, Dr. Erin Keating, who is actually a professor at Guy Gavriel Kay's alumnus at the University of Manitoba, and she's had him there for discussions and things like that. And he actually, when we posted on social media, he actually read out and said, "This is great. Thank you so much for doing this," which is really nice of him. So, but he is an iconic, especially Canadian.
Just learning. Yeah. To answer your question, I'll tell you who my favorite authors are. Number 1, Diana Gabaldon. I had the pleasure of meeting her a couple of times. She's created the most romantic characters in Jamie and Claire Fraser that I have ever encountered in any book anywhere. She's super smart, very witty. Look at what happened with the Outlander series, which I love. I could watch it over and over and never get tired of it. And it's just so epic and so important to me. So she's number one. Number two would be Anne Rice. She's somebody that I have read almost all of her stuff, and I read a lot of it when I was much younger, but I still think that there is, she's just remarkable in what she did in her books. And Bernard Cornwell, as you know, one of my favorite authors. I got to meet them all too, which is so incredible. I got to meet Bernard Cornwell in Toronto many years ago. I can't even remember what book it was for now, but I read his Arthurian Legend series and it blew my mind. And then of course finally finished that last year, and to write Uhtred of Bebbanburg is just like, are you kidding? I love adventure, for one thing. I love adventure. I love pirate stories. I love, anything like that. And it can be in any genre, as long as there's some heart of it. There's a great adventure and there's some romance as well, which is perfect for me. So those are three of my very favorites. I have so many, but I don't know how long I should go on and talk about them.
No, it's amazing. Recs are amazing. Because I think a lot of my viewers, certainly, they really value that people who know their stuff, like yourself, when they give recs, it really helps guide their reading potentially in their TBR. So thank you for that. I think the readers are gonna definitely have it. I mean, those are pretty popular, well-known ones, obviously, but yeah, like,
I can tell you a new one who's completely different genre. Completely, he's actually LGBTQ friendly, and his name is Stephen Rowley. I'm connected to him on social media as well, and he wrote a book that was almost an instant bestseller called Lily and the Octopus, and it's about his dachshund who ended up with the tumor that they basically called an octopus on his head, right? And it was so beautifully written and so emotional. As a dog lover, which I am, that I reading his other books as well, and he is so gifted. He wrote a beautiful book called The Editor about Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy, who I didn't realize was actually a book editor. I didn't know that about her. And she was part of the story, and it's so beautifully done. He has the most incredible sense of humor, and he has gay characters in his books as well. But he is just somebody who's like more contemporary that I've just fallen for reading everything that he has out there too. So that's something completely different, right? Different kind of genre, and I read like all kinds of stuff. I love Daphne du Maurier. I love her stuff. She's one of my favorites too. And I love Gothic fiction. So Susanna Kearsley, and Al Makatsu, and let me think who. Alex E. Harrow. She wrote Starling House. I don't know. Wrote The 10,000 Days of January. Flipping phenomenal writers, these people. I'm following so many of them now. I'm like, I can't even keep up with it all.
Yeah, those are brilliant recs. Thank you for that, Christine. The well-known ones and the more perhaps under the radar not as well-known ones. Those are really valuable. So, but listen, you've been so generous with your time. I don't want to. I could keep you here forever talking, but I'm going to respect, the fact that you joined me on a Saturday, a beautiful Saturday when there's so many things that you could and probably will be doing later. But to delay them for hanging out with me for an hour just means so much. Thank you again for being my friend and being an incredible editor. And I can't recommend highly enough for those of you out there, especially independent authors, and you're looking for an editor and you're wondering about, I know it's tough in the industry about who to trust, is this person legitimate? Are they credible? Christine is someone who is. So, if you are looking for, I can't recommend her highly enough. And again, I've been privileged to have her edit, the last 4 to 5 books in my Drown Kingdom set. I should be editing the rest, the last one, of course. I'm just ecstatic, very lucky to have connected with her on that, and to have her, help make my books what they are. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much.
I want to give the opportunity before we sign off, Christine, just to let people know where to find you on social media, if they're interested in your editing services, your website, how to get a hold of you, if things like that. Anything you'd like to say to promote that side of who and what you do?
Well, everything's on my website at bodaciouscopy.com, but I am also Bluesky, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn. I think those are the main ones. But you can connect with me through the website really easily.
Okay, perfect. And I would remind you that she's also a fabulous poet. I know this is the old school version, but check out Christine's poetry. She's a published poetry. Check out Amazon, Goodreads, etc. Eden Refugee, really moving, moved me to tears, a couple of them. Fantastic stuff. So if you're into poetry, check out Christine's work. Really, really good stuff on Amazon or Goodreads. So quickly for me, the shameless self-promotion part. I'm P.L. Stewart. I'm an author. Drown Kingdom Saga. Christine is my brilliant editor for that series. 5 books out right now. Pack of Wolves is most recently published, and A Black Dragon Unread Book 6 is coming out very shortly, probably in a month or so. So, think you'll like it. It's a departure from where we've been, but I think it's a very interesting departure to get back to where we left off from book 5. Also, the short story Forest Dark, which could help either prime you, potentially spoil you, but a lot of people say prime for book 6. A lot of people are, it's either, I think it's a choice either or what you like. You like to have some insights and backstory. You pick up a Forest Dark, and of course, the Shapers of the World anthology. Brilliant authors in that anthology. Please check it out. Shapers of the World 5 and Forest Dark is my short story. It's kind of smack dab in the middle of the anthology, but some brilliant authors, some brilliant short stories. I highly recommend the anthology as a whole, not just because I have a short story there, but it is very much tied to book 6, A Black Dragon Unread. And those of you who have read it, such as Christine, know what I'm talking about. So the YouTube channel, The Drown Kingdom Saga, and of course, this features 6 elemental interviews where I get to chat with brilliant people like Christine, of course, with my colleague Maven the Pages, another fabulous booktuber. We have this under the Page Chewing umbrella. We do the Page Chewing interview series, which is very similar. Finally, assistant editor with Before We Go blog. Shout out to the wonderful Beth Talbin, Before We Go blog crew, but a great blog site for fantasy, horror, and science fiction. And of course, the esteemed Grimdark magazine, where I'm also now part of the interview team there. So that is it for Christine and I. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for the last hour. And again, check out Christine if you're looking for a great editor. Can't recommend her highly enough. Check out her website, Bodacious Copy, and you might just find yourself your next editor, especially if you are an independent author. All right, folks, we're signing off, and we'll talk to you next time.